Today, May 1st, 2070, marks the 50th anniversary of the movement that became known as maymaskmonth. Every year since then, for the entire month of May, Americans and humans all over the world would get out their best masks and wear them in a show of solidarity to remember a rare moment in history when human beings gave up their selfish desires and came together in unity with their fellow humans against an enemy that threatened to engulf the world. A world that, although not perfect, that although far from perfect, was a world that was worth saving. 50 years ago, in the late part of 2019, a new coronavirus emerged from bats and infected its first human in a live animal market in Wuhan, China. That virus, known as COVID-19, was ideally suited to become a pandemic. Long incubation period, asymptomatic carriers, a death rate low enough to cause devastation while being predictably underestimated by a blustering world leadership. China was first. When it looked like the situation was about to deteriorate, the Communist Party imposed the most draconian measures on their population in a desperate attempt to contain the virus. The most restrictive lockdown ever imposed. But with the heavy hand of an authoritarian regime, the Communist Party steered its people out of crisis, only to see the rest of the world in flames. As Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin explained years later, we just weren't ready. We were busy reveling in our roaring economy fueled by cheap debt. And we always knew that one day we were going to pay for this. But we never imagined it would be that way. When we finally realized that we had underestimated the enemy, it was too late. We threw everything in the kitchen sink at it. But we already threw the kitchen sink in 2008, and we never bothered building it again. We didn't know what to do, so we just did what China did. We locked down. But as China predicted, democracies with our civil rights would not take the draconian measures that were required to defeat the virus. And they were right. We weren't. We weren't willing to shoot our citizens if they broke quarantine. We weren't willing to lock people in their homes and let them die. Because in the free world, we do not treat our citizens like animals. So we slowly choked out our already weakened economy with ever-increasing lockdown measures. The airlines went down. Banks stopped lending. People lost jobs. It was like trying to hold up a giant brick wall that was just ready to come down. Europe was far worse than us. The only one looking good was China. They were manufacturing 24/7, all the masks and equipment for the rest of the world to fight the pandemic. They were becoming the heroes of this war. But we knew that the world would now be guided by the heavy hand of the Communist Party, and that America and the free world would now sit behind a new leader in China. The free world was on its knees. The rapid spread of the virus, combined with a vulnerable economy, made for the perfect storm. It was our darkest hour. The free world stood at a precipice, faced with a ruthless enemy, our backs toward a sickening dive into chaos and communist-led authoritarianism. It was the defining moment of our generation. And we are here today because 50 years ago, those Americans met that moment with such awesome daring, with such courageous action, with such unshakable unity. The key, Jason would later describe, was realizing that we had to use another virus to defeat this virus. Jason, who created the virus and consequently became Patient Zero, realized that in order to defeat COVID-19, he would have to create a virus that was many times more infectious and would have to have a near 100% penetration into the population. Upon infecting the host, it must give the host immunity to COVID-19. In other words, he would have to create the perfect virus. And he did. And on March 17th, 2020, he injected that virus into the largest, most connected human network ever made. And this is the story of what happened. Like wildfire, it spread through America. As if waking from a reverie, a breath of fresh air passed over humanity. Panic for their own lives lifted and was replaced with panic for the lives of each other. Panic for their fellow humans. Panic for the values that they had loved but had taken for granted. Values of freedom and justice and equality. Values which were under threat by a ruthless and invisible enemy. But together they rose. Together they pulled each other up. And by doing so, pulled the world out of darkness. With the release of the virus, Jason started the movement known as maymaskmonth. It meant for the month of May 2020, every American that steps outside was to wear a face mask. Not because he fears for his safety, but because he fears for the safety of his fellow man. In Jason's words, "The enemy's fire, and we are its fuel. If we can prevent COVID-19 from jumping from one person to another, then that fire will die out. China did it by caging its citizens inside like beasts. But let them do it the way their people do it. We are not like that. We are a free people. We are Americans. And in America, you are free to be who you want to be. And as long as we put our fellow man above ourselves, we will always be strong. Because our strength is in each other." Scientists have found strong evidence showing that COVID-19 spreads primarily through the breath, and that some people, sometimes half the people that are infected, don't show symptoms, and thus become the fan that waves the flames. So how can we ensure that a person that appears healthy doesn't spread the virus to others? If everyone wore a mask, the virus would be trapped in the mask instead of going out into the air ready to attack our fellow man. And if we can get everyone to do this for just 1 month, then we can starve this fucker out. Our economy is on the brink of collapse because its people are trapped inside in fear. Let us not be afraid anymore. Let us instead be afraid for our brothers and sisters. Let us wear a mask and let us fight. Let us go to work. Let us go to restaurants. Let us go to basketball games. Let us be American. Because being American is being human. Americans, not one to back down from a fight. When posed with the option to sit around and do nothing, or stand up and do something, Americans, as Americans do, rose to the occasion. And the mask gave them a symbol to rally around. It gave them a weapon to fight with. It gave them an identity to hold on to. And it gave them a horizon. 1 month. Armed with a mask and each other, they stepped back into the light and they fought. They fought on the streets. They fought in the hills and in the fields. And they never surrendered. They never gave up who they were as a people. And in doing so, saved the world from ruin. They fought with courage because they fought for each other. That's all they really needed to remember. But Americans don't half-ass. We make the best in class. And when we do things, we do it in classic American style. So if we were going to be wearing masks, we should be wearing the best damn masks possible. So along with May Mask Month, Jason launched the $1 Million Mask Competition. He put up $1 million of his own money for the best mask that the people could make. At first, there were those who were skeptical that the competition was real, to which he replied, "The competition is real. The money is real. I cannot think of a better way to spend my money than in the service of my fellow man. We need to do this, guys. We need to work together. There's not enough masks out there, so we need to make our own. As we once did on Apollo 13, we need to think outside the box and figure out how to make a mask out of normal household materials that can be worn by every man, woman, and child in this country. It needs to be breathable. It needs to be reusable. It needs to be as good as an N95 mask. And last, and certainly not least, it needs to be American. It needs to allow each of us to express who we are as a people. The text from the original rules was as follows. The $1 Million Mask Competition. Make a face mask that 1. Can be made out of normal household or easily acquired materials. 2. Can be made to fit faces of any size or type. 3. Simple enough to be made by any person without training. 4. Low cost enough that our poor can afford to make one. 5. Comfortable enough to be worn for hours. 6. Breathable enough that an elderly person wouldn't be uncomfortable. 7. Reusable or with disposable or cleanable parts. 8. Comparable to an N95 mask in terms of filtration. 9. Can customize the appearance. 10. Is distinctly American. Prize money for the best mask, as judged by a team of experts and myself. $10,000 guaranteed. $100,000 if this post gets 100,000 shares. $1 million if this post gets 1 million shares. Submission. At least one picture of the mask on a person. At least one picture of a mask alone. Optional videos and photos welcome. Posted on social media of any and all types. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Tag with hashtag milliondollarmaskcompetition. Hashtag maymaskmonth. Hashtag behuman. Deadline 2 weeks from now. Tuesday, March 31st, 2020. There were reports of people wearing masks as early as the next day. They didn't want to wait. First, just handkerchiefs, scarves, makeshift contraptions. Any amount of barrier helped prevent the spread of the disease. These people came to be known as the zealots. They were the social media influencers that heard the call, and they answered. They came out onto the streets streaming with the most flamboyant masks. Masks that screamed at people to look, to listen. Masks that infected others with a new virus. Musicians were one of the first groups to support the movement, realizing that the true gift of performance is giving joy to other humans. They wrote songs of hope in a time of despair, and they performed them in streamed and televised concerts for free to promote May Mask Month, all while wearing the most dazzling, the most spectacular masks ever seen. Artists answered the call with the most prolific outpouring of creativity ever seen. In art history, the short time produced so many revolutionary pieces that it warranted its own art period named humanism. From graffiti to murals, artists raised their brushes to shine light in the face of darkness. Waitresses and bartenders, eager to see patrons returning to their restaurants and bars, were one of the first champions of mask wearing, and always had extra masks for patrons who were not yet part of the movement. Americans learned how to dine with a mask on, and a curious phenomenon occurred with American dining customs. While one person talked with a mask on, the other took off his mask and ate, and actually listened to what their partner was saying. Women found this custom particularly refreshing. Women played a pivotal role in the movement. At the time, America was in the midst of the feminist movement, and empowered women everywhere learned that as powerful as men pretend to be, they literally have us by the balls. In solidarity, no woman slept with any man that didn't wear a mask. Neighborhood communities that had been non-existent for decades revived with the help of Nextdoor. Communities rallied around each other, and once again, as in decades past, we relied on our neighbors. Elderly who were unable to leave their houses were brought food and supplies by the able-bodied. Single mothers dropped off their kids at a neighbor's instead of being torn by decisions to work or take care of their children. In one of the most courageous moves, athletes in the NBA, realizing as LeBron James did, that they play for the people, wanted to do their part and show the world the greatness of America in the face of adversity. they decided as a group to play without masks. 90% of players were infected with COVID-19. But being the strongest of our people, they cleared the virus easily, and their blood, rich with antibodies that could destroy COVID-19, was used to treat others with the disease. The fans, the American fans, as American fans ought to be, approached this task with their usual measure of bravado. Knowing that yelling and screaming, even into a mask, posed increased danger to their fellow man, found creative ways to make noise to support their teams. They used hands, feet, pots, pans, drums, horns, buzzers, bells, and made the most noise any game has ever experienced, even though every other seat remained empty to lower human density in the stadiums. Journalists found stories of compassion and kindness in a time of chaos and uncertainty. A website called americalandofthebrave.com would later be created and maintained by the community to show the amazing stories of humanness being exhibited by the people of this country. Media outlets began picking up these stories, and more they dominated the news cycle. Because what they found was that these stories of humanness hit us at our core, deep in our heart. They tug at the better parts of our nature. And when we see our brothers fighting, we rise up to fight with them. The healthcare workers were the front lines against the enemy. They were the heroes. Bound by a calling that resonated deep in their soul, they fought the enemy valiantly. Though tired beyond breaking and understaffed, wave after wave, they set out with a grim determination to fight for their people. Their casualties were highest. But the people rose and came to stand with them. If our front lines were running short on hospital beds, if our front lines were falling to this enemy, then we will just have to not get sick, America. We'll just have to not get sick. Everyone caught the bug. Even the naysayers. Even the trolls. 95% of Americans wore a mask at the height of May Mask Month. New cases of COVID-19 dropped dramatically within 14 days. America cleared COVID-19 in 2 months, all while resuming normal American activities. The economy quickly rebounded from the shock, and like a loaded coil, propelled to even higher heights, behind a nation armed with a newfound power in themselves. Europe and the rest of the world followed, and America resumed its rightful place as the leader of the free world. But now, instead of standing in front, they stand together with all other nations in solidarity. And they did this not because someone would shoot them if they didn't, but because as free men, they chose to put others before themselves. And for a moment, the world held its breath as all of humanity moved as one, together, in the face of a common enemy, as they are meant to move, with purpose, with dignity, with grace. Jason's virus was as elegant as it was simple. But this virus was not biological. It was ideological. It infected humans with an idea. For how it works, we could use no better words than his. A virus has two parts. Think of it as a bottle and a message. A perfect virus would have to have a perfect bottle and a perfect message. A perfect bottle gets the virus past all the host's defenses undetected. A perfect message causes the host to infect others and contains the blueprint of everything to come. Jason's bottle was a skillfully disguised container that wrapped its message in a beautiful story about a future that was possible. A future built on hope and freedom. A future worth fighting for. It was able to bypass the usual defenses of fear, doubt, ego, self, and deliver its message into the heart and soul of every human. And inside that message was a key that unlocked an ancient weapon within us, a weapon wielded by heroes long past, by Washington, by Jefferson, by Lincoln, by Roosevelt. A weapon that, if wielded together, had the power to bring this world out of darkness. And the message was the simplest. Simple, yet highly infectious. And infinitely powerful. The message was, be human. Be human, America. Because to be human is to be brave. It's to realize that something higher, something greater than ourselves is worth fighting for, is worth dying for. And that something is each other. So let us fight for each other, America. Our hour has come, and I ask you now, will you meet it? Will you meet it with daunting courage? Will you meet it with grim determination? Will you meet it with daring greatness? Will you meet it in your all-American style? And will you meet it with humanness? Our brothers in Europe are looking to us as they did 80 years ago. Our brothers in China are looking at us, waiting to pick up the pieces of a burned-out world where they will inevitably be on top. But I say to you, brother, you have taught us a great lesson, and you have given us a great opportunity to show you and the world what it means to be free, what it means to be American, what it means to be human. And for that, brother, we thank you. Because, brother, you have never known freedom, so you would never know that in a free world, the power is in the people. Our forefathers realized long ago that the best thing about us, the thing that makes us sparkle, the thing that makes us human, is that true freedom is the freedom to choose to put others before ourselves. We have to decide who we want to be as a people. Ours is not a covenant between master and slave. Ours is a covenant amongst humans. Will we stand for freedom and democracy as our fathers did, as our grandfathers did, as our forefathers did? We pulled the world out of darkness last century, and by God, we are going to pull the world out of darkness again this century. Only this time, the enemy is not fascism, and the weapon is not a rifle. This time, the enemy is a thing that eats away at everything that we hold dear. And our weapon is a mask. So let us put on a mask and let us meet our enemy. The cascade of events that happened started from that single point. A single virus wrapped in a dream of a brighter future. Be human. Be human. Be human. And like a perfect virus, it spread through the people like fire. It just has to replicate. So share this, my brothers and sisters. Share this and stand with me. Only together can we defeat this enemy. And together we will defeat this enemy. Share this. Spread the word. We are going to war.